Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name is Colin Chadwick.
And I'm Daniel Patton.
And on today's podcast, I will be talking to Chris Beech and Peter M George on the upcoming feature film crowdfunder for their feature film, Here Comes the Duke. And I will also be talking to none other than Mr. Daniel Patton here about time traveller EarthCorp.
I'm not that good again. And then I'll be talking with John and Harper about his episode of Uncharted Past, Volume 3. So, Connor, how have you been?
Busy, you?
Busy as well? Doesn't stop?
Well, this last month or so, you and I have got a lot of audios written, whether it be just us writing them or just, getting them into the process of recording.
Yeah, I think I mentioned, I think it was either a live stream or a previous podcast. I have a long list of projects I need to write for, and I got a good chunk of that now done, which feels good productivity. But at the same time, it's just sort of like their projects are years away still, so I feel somewhat relieved with others, but as well as like kind of wish I spent a little more time on them.
Yeah, and as well as that, we were talking about this a little while ago, and obviously everyone's seen the advertisement, but Sherlock Holmes is Volume 1 is now recording. In fact, I've been meaning to tell you, but we're very nearly finished. So as a result, you and I will need to record our lines very soon. and as well as that, obviously, we got some Crimson Hunter stuff done.
Exactly.
We've been working on if you haven't watched the Fractured Timeline live stream that went on Instagram, I basically listed every single project that is being done this year. So I might end up accidentally saying one of the things that Overton Audios themselves haven't actually said, which is still technically me, which means I would be announcing it. But anyway, we've basically got a lot done because, as I might mention on a previous podcast, I got very worried because last year's run of audios, I very much we got pretty much on top of, aside from one volume, whereas this year's run through, when we started this year, I've been way behind. But as a result, I've only now got one episode left to write, and then everything is written, and I can move on to next year's releases whilst this year's are still being recorded.
Exactly, yeah. Which is
the one I'm most worried about is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, because I'm getting some Uncharted Past Volume 1 vibes from Sherlock Holmes. This volume of Sherlock Holmes, because
Volume 1 of Uncharted Past was you saying we'll be fine, and me going no, Daniel. And then it happened with Volume 2 as well. The only time you listened to me was when the bloody lockdown went in. And you were like, oh yeah, let's start now.
That's because I felt creative then.
But yeah, so as a result, Sherlock Holmes is coming out in the end of July. But the problem is, all the outstanding volumes that are yet to come out, they aren't what I would call quick wins. And the reason what I define as a quick win is, for example, if we're able to write an entire volume, but they're coming out weekly, because then that's a month sorted. With the Sherlock Holmes volume and the second volume of Crimson Hunter, and as well this Mastermind volume, they are all coming out in one day. So as a result, they're not quick wins, because whilst it's like, yeah, a whole volume's done, yeah, another one ticked off the list. In terms of the ratio of completion of volumes to the amount of time taken to release, it's like, wow, 3 weeks of writing is now finished, and this volume is going to be out within 2 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it really doesn't, which is why I'm no longer going to do 1 day volumes anymore. I was initially thinking about it, but like every now and again, because it was meant to be once every 6 months, but then all of a sudden the ending of this year has got like 3 or 4 back to back.
Yeah, I kind of wished Uncharted Past, especially like Volume 3, was released weekly or daily, as we're going to be doing with Volume 4. Have you nice daily yet on the podcast?
No, but whatever.
Oh, the news Uncharted Past Volume 4 is going to be a daily release.
Well, like we've been on the DW 2012 Discord and hearing everyone's theories, which, by the way, very weird theories. out of the blue
Yeah.
that we never even considered to be theories. Like,
Yeah.
what's that about? What about his? They're thinking his history teacher's a bad guy.
I want to
We
know
know that.
why.
You know that they think Mr. Rogers is the bad guy.
I believe that's because Doctor Who has a series of good guys going bad. I think it's more or less to do with what the Master's been up to lately. Like, oh, the Master pretends to be this cool guy. You never expected the Master. Like, everyone's on like this. It looks like, can he be the Master?
Especially since series 12.
Yeah, especially in series 12.
But it's really not that. Like we said in this Discord, it's Mr. Rogers is just meant to be like a human father figure.
Exactly, and it's
which is why Volume 4 is all the more interesting for the predicament that the Doctor's in.
Exactly, and I said as well as in Discord, but Mr. Rogers is actually based off a teacher I had in primary school. I'm not going to name the primary school because...
And he wasn't the Master.
No, they don't know if he was.
Even then, you've like they've said rightly, you've made a statement saying that the Master isn't in Uncharted Past.
No, because I believe that if you were going to do the Master, you got to do it properly, and we just don't have the story for the Master here.
No,
it's Nathan's story, and why would we bring the Master into Nathan's story? I don't know.
No, it's a very human story, and the Master would, yeah.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, there's been some very interesting theories, and that's why it's going to be daily as well in terms of release, because each chapter or episode, probably the right way of calling it, has a very big impact, and putting that back to back hourly, I think, would devalue the final volume.
Yeah, because this volume is more serialized compared to any other volume we've had before. Every episode lends to the next, and there's a lot to process at the end of each episode. I don't think an hour gives the audience enough time to process the events.
In some cases, the audience anytime. There are some which they just come on and go, oh, the whole volume's out. Yeah. Because we're doing this on a Saturday, starting from midday until however many episodes there are. It could be 3 to 4 hours of back-to-back releases. Not everyone's going to be online waiting.
Exactly.
So it's good to space it out there to make sure that everyone gets a chance to absorb the information. But anyway, moving on from Uncharted Past, which of course you'll be talking to John about Volume 3 later, shall we go and have a little listen to the crowdfunder conversation I had with Chris Beech and Peter M. George?
Yes, please. It sounds very interesting.
Hi, my name is Chris Beech.
And I'm PMG.
I run Swinnerton Pictures. I am the writer, director and co-producer of Here Comes the Duke.
I run Keyframe Productions. I'll be co-producing. And I'm also the first AD. I come from a background of short films like Rogue and Valhalla, and I've also worked on several seasons of Waterside.
Whereas I have written, directed and produced several short films, from Le Grand Club de Voyage to Rock and Roll, which has got into over 30 festivals and won me several awards along the way.
We're looking to step everything up a notch with Here Comes the Duke, but we're not alone in our endeavours. We've been putting together a fantastic team who will be introducing more thoroughly as the days pass by.
From illustrator Vic Jepson to editor Ross Madison to composer Mike Parsons and cinematographer Megan Powell. Many of these guys have worked with me on previous projects.
We'll talk about each of them more down the line, but for now, the extravaganza that is Here Comes the Duke.
And I am back with PMG and Chris Beech. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Good, thanks. And yourself?
Very, very good, thank you.
And PMG, how are you?
I'm existing as ever. You know me.
Good. Yeah, it's the usual response. So we're here to talk about the film that you've directed, Chris Beech, and that PMG you've helped out on as well, called Here Comes the Duke. Could you tell us a bit about the film?
Here Comes the Duke is a comedy drama with very surreal undertones, because surrealism is my bag, as it were, or kitchen sink surrealism, if you want to be a bit precise. It doesn't really have a plot. It's stories within a story. It's about the life and times of a certain Pinky McGee. Pinky is a drug dealer. And Pinky, the film is divided between Pinky and his relationships with his clients, and each client is very different from the other, and they're all very varied and strange and what have you. So the film's just it's just like the developing and in the other sense the other way around of these relationships that he has with his clients. I often say it's a film about success, it's a film about greed, it's a film about capitalism, about relationships and struggling relationships, to be exact. It's a film about philosophy, there's a murder mystery in it, and it's a film about drugs as well.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I should also, just for extra clarity, you say that we've shot it. We've not shot it yet. We've shot a proof of concept trailer, which that's going to go on with our crowdfunder, so that everyone can get an idea of the kind of work we can do without a budget. And then hopefully we're going to be raising the budget to make the full feature film. It is a fairly shoestring budget in terms of feature filmmaking. We need to basically raise 30 grand to pay for things like locations, gear, props, sets, all sorts of stuff, food and transport, to actually get people, to not die on set and to be on set.
I really want that responsibility of my crew and cast dying, so
yeah, it's a lot of paperwork, to be honest. Like,
how many days were you filming?
So over Christmas, that was when we were shooting the proof of concept trailer. We were obviously COVID safe. In fact, I'm the COVID safety officer technically, so I made sure that everyone had taken a safety set on, a safety course before coming on set. Everyone had a certificate and everything, and we shot for 5 days in total, a little bit spread out. So I think it was a couple before Christmas, and then I think it was 3 between Christmas and New Year, because we really wanted to get it shot before 2021 started, sort of thing. And
the final day of the shoot took place on the day when Tier 4 was announced in Greater Manchester, because we shot the proof of concept in Salford. So we managed to get that done in time, thankfully. Obviously,
was Tier 4 announced at the same time as everyone else, or was it in little bits?
Yeah, so obviously where you are, that had been in Tier 4 for most of December already, I think, hadn't it? I know that you. I remember.
All I know is that Tier 4 came in. I think it was just before Christmas, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, so Essex and London started Tier 4 earlier than everyone else. It was sort of mid-December, early December, and then pretty much as our wrap announcement, we found out that the rest of the country was put into Tier 4, which if you go onto our social media pages, you'll actually see a video of our response. It's sort of, Chris makes this lovely announcement, and then everyone's kind of like, how do we respond?
Yeah. Because that was what I was going to mention about how long were you filming for, because I saw that, obviously, because you and I work closely together anyway, I knew that it was a couple of days, but obviously you seem to be able to predict my questions, because I was going to ask about COVID afterwards. You're like answering all the questions before I ask them. But
that's my job on set, really, isn't it? That's why I'm on board, is to try and preempt the problems before they happen, and if they still happen or ones come up that you can't foresee, then I try and deal with them at the time. That's what I do as both AD and a producer, which I'm both of on this feature project, just like I was with 2 seasons of Waterside and everything else. Yeah, like COVID's obviously a big thing at the moment. Nobody likes talking about it still, because it can sod right off, frankly, but it's very prevalent. It's something that we do have to be aware of, and so I've obviously my girlfriend's a nurse, so I've got that aspect of understanding of it. I'm able to sort of take in what's going on for the most part. It's hard to keep up with the guidelines, obviously, but like I said, that's why I got everyone.
They're ever changing these days.
Yeah, exactly. They're more fluid than a fart in the wind, frankly. But like it's one of those where we have to be on top of it.
Yeah,
and that is one of my jobs. It's why I got everyone to do this safety course, so that everyone had a baseline understanding, and then obviously I went, okay, these are the measures in particular that we're implementing. So
in the same way that on like for example, on the construction sites I work on, you have an induction.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Just an induction before people came on set. It was things like we have to have windows open for ventilation. We obviously carpooling was reduced as much as possible, but also is things like where people can eat and drink and stuff, because obviously you have to demask. There's a lot of considerations that go into it, and obviously as well, it does increase the costs of production. So whilst we were trying to minimize,
that's why we're seeing so many TV shows having to cut down the amount of episodes they're doing, because the budget is now being moved to COVID safety.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, one of the first things is that we've tried to reduce the number of crew on set, for example. The less people present, the less likely those to be spread. Yeah. But there's obviously considerations of like hand sanitizer, masks, disposable, like cutlery and crockery and things like that, or just having the ability to wash them straight away and things like that. There's a lot of additional costs that come from COVID, and obviously shooting a feature film, we're planning to spend, I think it's 16 and a half weeks is the current plan. Okay. That's not shooting every single day each week. It's up to 4 days a week. And obviously things still vary, but across that amount of time, taking into consideration COVID effects, on top of all of our normal budgeting, that's one of the reasons that we need to raise the money, essentially. And like I said, we're doing that through both a crowdfunder, and we are also applying to a variety of funding bodies, and we're applying for grants and things like that. So we're doing a lot to raise the money for it. We're also obviously putting our own money in. So at the moment, Chris and I have funded the proof of concept, which by the time that this podcast goes out, you'll actually be able to go to our crowdfunder and watch that. And I do really recommend it. If my
schedule works out, this podcast will be out on the 3rd of March.
Fantastic. Well, then it'll have been out for just over a week, about a week and a half.
Send me over the link. Send me over the link so I can obviously attach it to the podcast.
Beautiful. Just in case people can't be bothered to click a link, you can search for "Here Comes the Duke" on Kickstarter. You can also search for it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We've really been pumping out content for all of those social media channels. Big shout out to our DOP and co-producer Megan Powell for that. She's amazing anyway, which is why she's on the project. She was on the project before me, so Chris, you can probably big her up a bit better than I can right now.
Oh, she's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Like when I brought her on board, like the quality of the production and everything just went through the roof compared to how it was before.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And with regards to this proof of concept piece, I'll just say that think of it as like a little dress rehearsal for the actual film, a little appetizer, as it were, because we don't actually intend to start the shoot for the feature. At the earliest, it's May, as it stands. Obviously, in regards to COVID and that, we're led to believe that restrictions will be eased. Well, obviously, depends what Boris has to say on that one.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that schools are reopening on the 8th of March, and then they haven't said anything about the rest of the world. But you'd think that because during the summer months is when COVID seems to die down a bit, because obviously the cold weather and rain, like there's always cause for flu season anyway. So the summer season we seem to be doing better regarding COVID management. So you'd fingers crossed things will be better by those sort of months anyway.
Yeah, it's a
Well, Bojo's making an announcement about it today, isn't he?
Is he?
And then throughout, yes, yeah. So that's either going to confirm or deny the schools reopening, and if any other changes are happening. Like I say, I'm on the ball.
They'll change their mind next week.
With it all.
Yeah, they'll change their mind next week. You know that.
I'm fully expecting it to be nothing's changed, but you're still not allowed to, lick your armpit or something. I don't know, like. The guidelines just get a bit weird at times, frankly. The thing with summer is that people tend to be outside a little bit more, and the ventilation is a key factor in helping. So obviously things get a little bit tougher when people do get other illnesses over winter, such as influenza, etc. And it's the combination can be really dangerous. But yeah, we'll for the most part we'll be shooting over summer, like Chris said.
Yeah.
There is a little bit. There's one scene in particular that we'll be shooting way back in October, and I've got to learn French for that. But I won't say any more there. I don't want to give too many spoilers. Learning the whole language for one scene.
So we've talked about the logistics and everything like that, but let's chat about where the idea came from. So, Chris, when did you come up with this idea, and how long has it been in development?
Well, funny enough, I wrote the very first draft of this script back in 2012. Between 2012 and 2017, ideas began to build and certain elements evolved. So the very first fully completed draft was done back in 2017.
Okay.
And since then, it's just been revised and reevaluated and what have you. And obviously,
did lockdown come into it at all? Thinking, well, I've got time now.
Well, funny enough, over the past year, I'd say that with the current state that we're living in, I feel like this film has become quite relevant. Well, more than ever, really, to make. It's the film is truly a reflection of current society, the current state of the world that we're living in, I feel. The film is set in a part of England which is very former industrialized, neglected, sort of working class sort of vibes and aesthetics. And obviously, because a lot of the crew are based in Manchester, which is, you can relate to that. And I'm originally from Stoke-on-Trent, and that's very much an inspiration. So I feel that now more than ever is the perfect time to shoot this film.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that with other creatives during lockdown. They've returned to old, scrapped projects and found that now they've got so much time to fill, they'll go back to old projects. But this one sounds like it's been in the works for the best part of a decade.
Yeah, nearly a decade, 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just these little ideas that I had back when I was a student, and they've just grown. And
what's the plan after the film's done? What's the plan in terms of like distribution?
Well, prior to making this film, I've been working on shorts, and they've all had their own little festival circuits and what have you. So we intend to take this film onto its own festival circuit as well. Hopefully some big festivals, some really, really big festivals, and see if it can get into any further cinematic releases or other forms of distribution. So
Chris is being a little bit modest here. He says that his films have been on the festival circuit. His most recent short film, Rock and Roll, that got accepted by more than 30 festivals, and it's won him 6 awards. So when he says that he's done some festivals, he's successfully done some festivals.
I try and
remain obviously. Yes, you are very humble, Chris. But I'm gonna shout your achievements from the fucking rooftops, mate. Because I mean, it's indicative of the level of Chris's work. Like I say, we've also got Megan Powell on, who, if you've ever seen any of her work, is absolutely phenomenal. I imagine a lot of your listeners will have seen Waterside. Obviously, we've spoken about it quite a lot, so hopefully they've had a bit of interest.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to see the level of work that I've done as well. I also mentioned Valhalla in our crowdfunding stuff, which, considering that was shot with no budget, we managed to get a Viking army together. Like, you know, there's a lot that we can do with nothing, and we're asking for a little help to get a little bit. So the proof of concept shows what we can do with no budget, and that's going to show what we can do with the feature film if we've got a small budget. Like, imagine what we can do there. And then we'll take it to the thing, take it through the festival circuit, like Chris says. We're aiming for some big ones like Sundance and Berlinale and stuff like that. And then after that, if we're able to arrange a sort of distribution deal, that would be ideal. I've got in mind to take it to the American film market, which that's where I say we sold Remember, Grace and Mercy. I'm not part of the crew. Well, rather wasn't part of the crew then. I'm possibly on the second and third films. But that's where that film got sold, and that's obviously COVID's delayed things, but it's pending a US cinema release and a UK TV release. So we're pursuing several avenues. We're going to try and get it out there as much as possible. And on that topic, in fact, one of the perks from the crowdfunder is that you can come and watch the screening with the crew and the cast. And obviously that's all going to be COVID dependent. We'll make sure it's safe. We're hoping that by the time we finish shooting and everything, vaccines have all sort of done their job, and it's a bit of a thing of the past. But obviously that's a logistical thing our end, but it's really cool to be able to offer that as a perk.
There's something I was going to move on to, is are there different levels of perks with the crowdfunder?
Yeah, so once again, I've preempted you, Connor. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm like, how am I going to have anything to say? You're answering everything.
Kind of like, I'll interview these guys, but I won't have to say anything.
Just
give your listeners a break from you. You can have a rest for once. That'll be a novelty. So in terms of perks, everyone who donates, we give a shout out on social media. The next tier up is that you'll get special thanks credit. The one up from that is, I think, it's pretty cool, because Chris will personally write a haiku just for you, and then we'll have him record it and send that to you as well.
Yeah.
And when you start getting into the higher tiers, it'll be things like you can get production T-shirts. A bit later on in the campaign, I don't know if this will be up by the time this goes live or not, but we're looking to offer props as well. That's not going to be there during launch, so I don't know if that'll be up yet.
Well, either way, no matter what you say, just go and double check the crowdfunder just to see what the perks are. But
yeah, definitely, because there are a lot of cool things going on there, and if I sat here and talked about all of them, then you wouldn't have any time to talk to Dan, which maybe someone will be happy about that, but let's not kick him out just yet. So there's lots of cool things. Some of the more amusing ones are things like you can tell us what to wear for one of the days on set. You can even visit set with some of them as well. And in fact, you can actually visit set on the day that you dress us all up, like personal dollies. And then there's like the top tier executive producer, so you get to come to the screening, you get to do a Q&A. There's loads of cool things in there. And like I say, if I just sat here and told you all of them, then no one else would get to talk for far too long.
But then as the perks go up, do you like, for example, like you say, you get a special thanks with one of the perks. When you go up to another perk, do you get that as well as, for example, the haiku?
You do, yeah.
So each tier builds on the last one. The only one that,
so by the end of it, if you were to give the highest perk, you get basically a massive pack of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Which I believe Meg has wonderfully titled "The Boss Ass Bitch." That's the one where you get the executive producer credit. You get a day on set. You get to dress up. You get to go to the Q&A screening with the cast and crew and everything. You get the T-shirt. You get all sorts. So each tier builds on the last one. The only one that doesn't, and this is part of the reason that it's not necessarily gone live yet, is the prop one. Although we might be able to do add-ons and things like that. And yeah, just lots to check out. So do go and look at it. Like I say, it's Here Comes the Duke. It'll be on Kickstarter. And we'll be posting about it on social media as well. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, blah blah blah. But yeah, come check it out. See what you think. Watch the proof of concept because that's really fun. And also, Chris and I speak a little bit more succinctly about what we need the money for, what we'll do with it, what you get for that, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
One question that's just come to mind is that with obviously the cast and the crew you've worked with for this proof of concept, is the whole team is staying the same after when you go to the real thing, or is it all going to be sort of shifted around and changed?
Well, we've pretty much got the exact same crew going forward onto the feature. Because we did have a really great crew for this proof of concept. Like the crew that we have
Sorry, go on, Chris.
I was just going to say, the crew that we have right now, everyone's got their own qualities, which I'm glad that they can bring forward, and together it really boosts the quality of the production of this film. So I'm quite blessed to have the crew that we have at the moment.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that we've actually been expanding the crew since as well. So in view of the fact that everyone is such a specialist in their fields, obviously we can communicate very well between departments. Although that's also why we've got the production team, so that they can obviously oversee that as well. But in the last, I think, 2, maybe 3 weeks, we've brought on a props master, a set designer, an armorer. Like we're going full works. We're bringing people on board that know what they're talking about. Like with the armorer, it's important to know some of the historical stuff that's been applied, and with set dressing and stuff, obviously that needs to be representative of the characters involved, as opposed to, hey, let's just use this place sort of thing. Like we're trying to maximize the production value on this shoestring budget because we want it to be the best that it can be. But generally speaking, the crew, like Chris has said, is the same, but with some extra people on board. Because a feature films normally have hundreds of people working on it. We're just about into being able to say dozens, sort of thing. Like, I don't think we're at 2 dozen crew yet, but if you include cast, then we'll be at about 3 dozen people at the moment. And speaking of cast, actually, we are going to be announcing casting calls fairly soon. I believe, Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're planning to pop those up after the crowdfunder, just so that we're not losing focus on everything, and so that the casting calls don't get drowned out by us going, we've got this to offer you, can you donate, and you'll get some cool stuff, sort of thing.
That's correct. So yeah, the casting calls will go live next month to coincide with the end of the crowdfunder. Quite a number of roles that we're still looking for. We have hired our Pinky McGee already, the great Leah Batty, who is a superb actor who was in our proof of concept. He was a dream to work with, and I very much look forward to working with him again in the next few months. So at the moment, it's just the supporting cast that we're trying to search for.
Cool. Is there anything else you both wanted to say before we finish up?
Check out the crowdfunder and
link in the description of the podcast.
Yeah. I'd say that if obviously we know that it's been a god awful year and finances are tight for everyone. A lot of funding bodies and grant applications have become a bit null and void at the moment. whilst we do appreciate everyone's probably a bit strapped for cash, and we're obviously putting our own money into the project, anything you can give is so helpful to us. I'm dealing with a budget in terms of spending, and I'm going to make sure we don't spend it on anything that's not necessary. We're going to absolutely maximize the production value, but anything you do give will be extremely appreciated. And the more that you give, the bigger prizes you get, sort of thing. So it's something that we want to make sure that you're getting something out of it as well. We're not just saying, please give us money so we can make a film. We're saying, please give us money so we can give you some cool stuff and make a film. And yeah, basically, please donate. Please check us out. Check out all the socials. Spread the word as well. If you genuinely can't donate, we appreciate that that's the case, but spreading the word out is super useful too. So spam the links. Check out all our memes. There's a lot of on-set memes as well, and there's also nice little clips and all sorts. So do check everything out, and it'll be great to see you throughout the whole fever dream. Frankly,
Support independent film. Yes, support us specifically.
Hashtag support independent film.
Yes.
All right then, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah.
thank you, Connor.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Connor.
Bye-bye.
Shall we read some comments?
Yes, please. Would you like to start with the backdoor loop, because that just came out today as recording?
Oh yeah, it's recording. It's been out for about 4.5 hours. I've got quite a few comments. We'll do that, and then we'll do some Uncharted Past.
Yeah.
Right.
We should, if your comment has been acknowledged in this podcast, because we're recording this 4 hours just after the release of the backdoor.
Yeah. So, comment from Professor Provolone. This is again the Magtor loop. There are quite a few things I'd like to compliment. Wendy, as 13, is bloody awesome. A Sunday release was a nice touch, and this is probably the best sound effects have ever sounded on Overton Audios. I could be mistaken, but it sounded like you only used Sigan Akinsola's music. There are a bunch of tiny details that come together to make this one of the best and most enjoyable Overton Audio stories. I did reply to this, but I'll just say a more detailed, quicker response here. The reason why the sound effects sound better is because all the releases you're currently listening to are about a year old. So I'm constantly, pushing to, improve myself. So the fact that this was finished editing about a week ago, and meanwhile Volume 3 has been finished for 8 months, there's probably why there's a very sudden difference, is because it's been 8 months. It's just because I'm always trying to get better.
Yeah, because the Magtor loop it is a bit of a preview for the quality that's to come in later releases.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, it would be like if I was releasing the Dalek Federation now and then this came out, there'd be a huge difference. Plus, the acoustics in my apartment now are completely different to the old ones, because obviously most of the audios that are still coming out now were recorded nearly 6 months before I moved. So as a result, the acoustics might be different, as well as that. Bear in mind as well, Uncharted Past Volume 3 was edited whilst I was partially deaf.
That's right.
So we've now reached the point of releases where I was partially deaf during this time. So they're going to probably sound better in comparison to when I'm half deaf anyway. But yeah, and yes, I did use Sigan Akinsola's music, because the whole point of Transcending Time, which isn't a volume, it's more like, well, it is a volume, but it's not like a volume of weekly episodes. It's just going to happen whenever we have the time to, because obviously I'm trying to manage too many other things. But we're going to have each episode where a DW 2012 doctor meets a BBC doctor. It's never going to be like, for example, it wasn't a Cravat Doctor story. It was a 13th Doctor story where I just show up. That exactly. It's meant to be, it could slot into the series, the televised series. Like, I've just burst in. So if we do any more with other doctors, they will be reflective of that era.
Exactly, yeah.
I've spent way too long on that. Anyway, other comments, which are shorter, say, this was an absolute joy to listen. Oh yeah, this is from Renegade Productions, saying this was an absolute joy to listen to. Also, I would like to know how do I contact Wendy Abrahams? Her Jodie Whittaker impression is godly. I found her on Facebook. I had actually heard Wendy's impression through Mr. TARDIS Reviews fan audio.
Yeah.
The trailer came out, and I heard that went, wow, that's really good. Then when the actual audio drama got released, I heard her and just immediately messaged her. This was back in about 4 months ago. I messaged her, but she was busy up until New Year, because obviously lockdown was eased by then, and she's an entertainer for her job, so December is a big month for entertainment. So she was busy until the New Year, and that gave me time to make the script as strong as possible as well, knowing that she was on board. And then, she got it recorded very, very soon, and then everybody else got recorded shortly after. But just find her on Facebook. I'm not going to give you the link. You have to find it yourself. Another comment has asked, where in her timeline does this take place for the 13th Doctor? I guess it's definitely very pre-Timeless child arc, because the Rani's in it and she doesn't say a thing. But also it's meant to be set between Resolution and Spyfall. So, when you see the Doctor in Spyfall with doing the mechanics on the underside of the TARDIS, it's meant to be one of those sort of affairs where the fam are off getting their family together, and she's just letting them get on with it, and then there's just a story in between. Just one more comment. TARDIS Glitch says, I just thought if you did this again with classic Who Doctors, then perhaps we'd have this released on a Tuesday. But I also loved this episode. It's really interesting. Well, yeah, like I said, if we do a 5th Doctor or Colin Baker, 80s Doctor, which their release schedule was sometimes midweek, then we would do that to replicate that. That's why, again, this one's come out on the Sunday. That's all the comments for the Magtor Loop currently, as of the 21st of February, and I know this is coming out on the 3rd of March, so it's going to probably be significantly more comments, but I just want to make it clear that yeah. Right, anyway, some comments for Uncharted Past.
Episode 1, the Unearthly Travelers. I may be wrong, but the beginning of the episode, it totally felt like a homage to an unearthly child, and I love it. Basically, yeah, it was.
I remember this argument. We were arguing over the title for weeks.
Oh yeah, the biggest thing about, and this is why I'm so glad we had the time to discuss this, because I had an original idea for the episode title, and it was going to be called "The Blinders of Truth."
Yeah,
but you felt it would work calling it the Unearthly Travelers, because it's basically Amber's perspective, and it's a lot like.
But also, like she follows him to the same junkyard, and the same event happens.
Yeah,
and rather than it being a granddaughter, it's a son. it's like everything's there.
Yeah, and to this day, I still like the title, the Blinders of Truth, but I do get I was outvoted basically. That's
Yeah, I think Anya had to come and break us up.
Yeah. No, John came in. We had to get John's opinion.
John had to mediate this argument.
But still, the Unearthly Travels does work. Again, I had a different.
You can save that title for something else down the line as well.
But the Blinders of Truth was the gang that was in the episode. That's why it was called
the gang could still be operating.
It's true. Spin-off. Hashtag wink wink. All right, and this is and so that comment was by the Soap Lord. TARDIS Glitches here asking, so I don't trust Mr. Rogers. There's something about him. Is TARDIS Glitch the one who's having this theory he's a bad guy?
He has started this rumor. He just messaged me after The Beast of Christmas came out and asked, and he said it. I can't even remember what he really said. I just know that he doesn't trust him, and I don't know why. Well,
Professor Malone has joined in this conversation. Yeah, ever since the first conversation we heard him have with Nathan, he said, "My guardian would be worried about me." To that, Mr. Rogers said, "Yes, I'm sure he will. Ever since I've been expecting him to be the master or something." I mean, that's just. day? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure he would. I mean, is that sinister?
Yeah, but but part of the story is that everyone is a little bit suspicious of Nathan's origins because he literally gives nothing away. So everyone's just a bit suspicious of him anyway, going, "Oh, where do you live?" That's why Unearthly Travelers happens.
I mean, if you can think about it this way, I mean, Amber is also very suspicious of Nathan. Does that mean Amber's a villain in disguise?
Oh my God, Amber is the Reich.
Oh my. Which is very wrong when you pile up everything else. Well, Dan has confirmed that the Master isn't in his series, and he ain't the monk. He might just be a new Time Lord if he's Devlin's client. No, anything.
Stop reading about these rumors. It's a waste of time.
It really is. All right, let's carry on. From Michael Cox, another brilliant adventure. Amber is a great addition to the TARS crew, expanding the character's dynamic. Nice work, guys. I'm very happy that Amber has joined the crew. I like that dynamic. Josh Dyer, loved it. I always enjoyed having the Dr. Treble family. Is this April that Amber brings a reference to the Class spin-off? But yeah, it's meant to be Amber. No, Amber. April from Class. It's
Amber's in the year above.
Yeah, she's in lower sixth form, where Amber's in higher sixth form, and basically she's just like trying to rope under sixth form to help with parents' events.
And to put into context as well, this series, at least volume 3, is set during 2015.
Yeah, so a year before that happens.
Because obviously, all I'll say is this. Class is set in September 2016, sort of September, October. Go and look at the prequel and go and see what the gravestone says.
Yeah.
That sets the continuity up for you.
Do you want to take over from episode 2, sir?
Okay. Episode 2, we have a comment here from Professor Provolone. Alternate title, The Biscuits of Death. Which, of course, knowing the segment that you've done with John, you make a couple of jokes about the biscuits.
Yeah. If this was the 70s, it would be called The Biscuits of Death.
Oh, yeah. Davros Oswald says, amazing audio. Great to see the Protectors back. Looking forward to seeing more of Amber. But anyway, here's the main question. Would you like a biscuit? Too much biscuits. Right, and then lastly, Michael Cox has, I don't like this word, a truly innovative story. I always get like trip over my words when I say that. Anyway, beware of the malevolent malevolent machines bearing biscuits. It's all just biscuits. Forgive me, but since you are employing a paradox of sterilize a prior paradox, it might have been easier to follow if the explanation about the first paradox in this time code had been given immediately after the doctor declares there's something wrong with time at this time code, and then go on to propose as the solution. Now, a little bit of behind-the-scenes trivia for you all. This episode was possibly the trickiest one to pull off.
Yes.
Because there was a predetermined story that John had made about the Protectors, but then, of course, me and him were working together to try and do the Young Doctor adventures, like that story that connects in with the whole Protectors arc.
Yeah.
But because I had to write that for him, he had forgotten what I'd written in there to set up this story. So as a result, there were some continuity errors. But also, as well as that, we didn't want to reveal everything too immediately, because then you just lose the mystery of the story. But of course, at the same time, when you're dealing with time paradoxes, it has to be kind of definite as to what is going on. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
That's all the comments for episode 2. Shall I move on to episode 3?
Yes, sir.
War of the Schalke. Renegade Productions says, I loved this so much, which I'm very glad about. I think I wrote this all in a night, didn't I? I got so inspired one night, I just went ahead and did it.
Yeah, and I think this is the first. I think this is either the first or second script we finished for Volume 3.
It was the first. It was the first.
Yeah,
because it's very minimal cast in comparison. Effectively, it's you, Callum, Emily, John, and then some background characters.
I think this is the first one we also got finished.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like we finished finished writing and finished recording and editing.
Yeah.
The last one that got done was Our Lord Protector, because of all the difficult behind the scenes stuff that I just mentioned. Another comment from TARDIS Glitch saying, "This is a fantastic and interesting story. I love how some of the scenes were pulled straight from Scream of the Shulker, like when Nathan sent the Shulker out of the TARDIS into a black hole. Perfectly made, and the addition of the Ice Warriors is quite unique." That's what I was doing about adapting Scream of the Shulker. When they have the army drafted in with the Shulker Doctor, we replaced that with the Ice Warriors because, again, an idea made by a friend was to have fire and ice. And then we've got that idea, planted it into the original Scream of the Shulker. Obviously, there's no robotic master because it's like we just have Nathan and Amber. So luckily, we were still able to adapt things where the original character Alison could be Amber now. And then meanwhile, some things that Nathan does like could be done by the robotic master, but not obviously everything due to context. Like having the argument that the Doctor and Nathan have is very much a father and son thing, as opposed to the Doctor and robotic master having like just an enemy clash.
Yeah,
it just took a little while to do. And then obviously last comment from Michael Cox, another great drama. The Shulker are interesting creatures, good choice. As usual, excellent performances from all cast members. Nathan and Amber really stepped up to become heroes. Truly worthy companions to the Doctor. Thank you again, Michael. He always has a brilliant way of, a brilliant way with words, especially in his comments. So yeah, that's episode 3.
And finally, episode 4, The Hunt for the Doctor. So in this episode, it was the introduction of probably my favorite villain, Devlin. So there's a lot of comments about Devlin in here. Hey, it's Luke Lane. That username? No, hey, it's Luke Lane. Devlin's favorite is the producer.
Oh, hey, it's Luke Lane.
And Tarslick says, this is fantastic. Devlin's a fantastic film, and I love to see more of him. Also, that cliffhanger of an ending, the Doctor is human again, spoiler alert. If I was expecting to have the Doctor beat Devlin, but nah, he actually did it. How is he going to get his memories back? I'll find out in Volume 4. Anyway, shall we move on to EarthCorp Volume 1?
Yes, okay, here's the trailer. Overton Audios presents.
You need to come to this Stormcorp event with us.
Why? What's Jesse said now?
No, nothing like that. But there's something happening tonight at that event. It's going to be huge.
Hello everyone. Thank you for coming. Now, some of you may think that the word takeover implies the absorption of another company, or even something more sinister than that.
What was that?
I think that was Project Takeover.
To set off a bomb in Molten.
It's going to fall.
Down into the tunnels.
Dr. Charles, in charge of the sciences at Data Line Industries, he had created the perfect clone.
In a world where the final act was never formed, events unfolded very differently. Time Traveller, EarthCorp Volume 1, coming the 13th of March 2021 at 12 p.m. So, EarthCorp 1. Daniel, this has been pretty much something you pitched to me about 3 years ago.
I think I might have pitched it when we were making Retribution back in 2016, so it could date
nearly 5 years ago. Oh my god, at least 4 years ago, yeah. So for those who, because I know there'll probably be some bit of confusion about it. Basically, for those of you who follow the Time Traveller volumes, you are aware that there was obviously, as judging by the title, a bit of time travel in there. So what happens with this is Dan's character called Jason, because you've obviously also played the news reporter in series 1 and 2 of the visual series, we give you basically a doppelganger, which is from another timeline. And his name in this timeline was Jason. And that was a timeline where the villains won. The villains successfully set off this bomb that were nuclear bomb that wiped out the east coast of England and killed millions. Your character, along with a different version of Leo Simmons, my character, and Jessie Clark, who was mentioned and heard in the original visual series, but never seen, she is in this as well, played by Emily Meir, who plays Amber in Uncharted Past. They both survive by hiding underground. And then it's about how it's basically a big survival story. And then as time goes on, they realize that something went wrong. And there's this breach that keeps taking people from where they are into another place. But of course, you may or may not know from Time Traveler 2016 what happens to these people. Dun, 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 dun. But of course, your character, but at the time when we were filming it, we had this original idea for Series 4, where it was going to be some characters are in the Prime timeline, and then others have travelled over to EarthCorp. It was going to be Jason travels over with a couple of other characters from the series to go and solve this mystery.
Yeah, I remember we went to this whole seconds unit production where I lead in Ireland.
You'd film in Ireland because you have great woodland, and then I would film all the bits that are more London-based.
Yeah, but that fell through, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it was a case of the ending of the third series was half the human race dying, and with no budget, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, we kind of set ourselves up for a production we could not afford.
Yeah, exactly. So as a result, we decided to stop it. I moved on to doing Waterside. And we worked on that, and then obviously as the audios have come up, we've developed on the ideas and done the anthology. But EarthCorp, I find it really fascinating because I've been able to do things in the series of Time Traveler, but also just generally in audio drama that we wouldn't usually do. Like, there's not that, for example, in the Doctor Who audios we do, or just generally, there's not that many nightclub scenes, for example. So that's been really interesting to do with sound. Certainly in terms of sound editing.
Yeah, it was interesting as well, character-based. I've never done a character like Jason at this point of his life.
Well, Jason's not really a guy you like at this point, is he?
He's very much.
He is a coward, putting it nicely. He looks out for himself. His friend is still Leo Simmons, at least his version of Leo Simmons, but ultimately he only cares about his own self-preservation. He'll happily only, like, even though everyone's starving and hungry, he'll moan about being hungry.
Yeah,
it's that sort of thing, and he's used to having everything handed to him, which is why when this catastrophe happens and it's a survival game, this is how Jason becomes the man he is in Retribution, which is the third series of the visuals. And as a result, you also see him continue to grow in Retribution, despite the fact it came out 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's sort of, we're pairing like character progression that's already happened with. It's sort of like we're trying, because I remember when we were thinking about this volume, we were trying to think about where Jason was going in the visuals and try and lean that up with what progression we can give him here. So it's a constant progression of character.
Yeah, so we made him the worst person he could be. So therefore, you can only go up.
Yeah.
But ultimately, even by like the end of this volume, there are questions left. But even at the end of it, even though you already know what happens to him in Retribution, providing you've watched the visuals, but and the way we're wording it makes it sound like he's got an incomplete story. He doesn't, because ultimately he does stand up for what he knows and who he is, and then by the end of it, he is having to stand up and do things himself. Whereas before, he was never doing any of that. And I think it's like what I like about these stories is that when you and I are doing our Doctor Who audios, the Doctor is already anything that any person should aspire to.
Yeah.
Standing up for injustice, helping those in need. But I think it's always interesting to play a character like Jason who doesn't do any of that or have any sort of seemingly redeemable qualities sometimes.
Yeah,
you get to explore mentality of where did that come from? Why do you only care about yourself? Why are you not caring about the fact that millions of, have died? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And what also it was good to play with was we go back to some of the flashbacks from Retribution, and we get to develop what emotions brought, like the build-up of character and emotions and acts that lead into those moments, and define them more, getting more definition to what those moments meant.
Exactly. And obviously, as we know from the ending of Retribution, when they finished their task at hand in that visual series, you can even see there that Jason is more confident in what he's doing, and he's more selfless rather than selfish.
Yeah.
And whilst in this volume he doesn't necessarily lose his selfish streak, he certainly has let in a bit of selflessness, which is a good first step. And when we're going to see him again, which we are seeing Jason again, but this time in the Time Traveler 2017 volume, that is set between episodes in Retribution, and we definitely develop more on him there, which I'm sure we'll talk about more when the next podcast, which is closest to that volume. But yeah, EarthCorp is something I just want to make everyone be clear. It's in another universe.
Yeah, I don't think we made. I can't remember if we made it very clear in the volume.
Well, the colours are very clear. Like, we've always had red and blue for certain areas. Like, blue is for series 1 and 2 to represent that the audios fit into those. But then from then on, it's red. So this colour is actually more of a sort of turquoise, greeny blue for this.
Yeah.
So it's very different. And what's also different is that in these cover arts, unlike the other anthology series, which are just kind of like a computer grid background, like a coloured red or blue computer grid background, this one actually has faded backgrounds into it.
Yeah, so it's not like, because we're always defined the main universe with the grids.
Well, the reason for that is because you've got the visual series to literally reference from. If you want to know where they are, you can just look at the visual episodes. Whereas with EarthCorp, this is something we'd never explored before, so we've always done it so that's why we've done it this way, so that you have a visual reference for what this world looks like, because the only thing you've seen of it is in flashbacks in Retribution.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's artistic style while still keeping similar. I mean, it has to be similar for the purpose of branding, but it's very obviously its own thing as well, I like to think.
Yeah, me too. I think it stands out because it is its own drama of its own right, because we're starting with fresh of these characters, and we see their struggles, we see how that leads into the broader story later on. But it was very interesting to it's sort of start from the ground up with something like this.
Yeah. So, speaking of characters struggling, shall we move on to the segment where you talk to John, the main torturer of Nathan Chase?
So this was a conversation and a half.
Yes.
Yep. Go on.
All right, here we go.
No, what's going on now? Oh, the warning lights again. I'm gonna have to get rid of those. They never bloody stop.
Well, you got your wish. If warning lights didn't annoy, let's listen to the bonging of large bells, surely.
I don't think you understand the severity of the situation. The cloister bell means either something terribly tragic has happened to the universe, or the TARDIS is under attack. Time for the battle stations.
Battle stations?
Hello everyone, I am joined here with John and Harper, who wrote episode 2 of volume 3 of Uncharted Past, Our Lord Protector. How are you doing, John?
Hello! Yes, I am doing great.
You're recurring in this podcast, aren't you? How many podcasts
Yeah.
have you done so far?
I think I've been in a few episodes, because I've done like lots of like voices and stuff like that. And so yeah. But this is like one of the rare times I've actually gone and written a script for these audios, you know?
It's true. This is second audio you've written for Uncharted Past, which is in a trilogy of story which spans some of the other ranges and Overton Audios. So
you've got I think this one's called I can't remember the names. It's been such a long time. Which one's this called again?
Our Lord Protector.
Ah, yes, because the first one, which I wrote all the way back in probably middle of 2019. For that one, the first one, that was for the first episode of Uncharted Past. You know, that was set in far future, very weird kind of storyline, very very ominous, and you're just a bit like, oh, okay, so maybe there's more to tell. And then of course we have the young Doctor meet the Protectors and whatever, and have that story. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to write that story, so it ended up being more of like a I tell Connor what to write, and it was one of those situations.
And speaking of the devil, like Connor, go away, Chaz. I'm recording for our podcast. But please go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
No worries. But yeah, so I got to episode 3, and it was meant to be this whole timey-wimey thing where, the Doctor and his dear old companion will arrive, and they'll just be. It's weird though, like it started off with a bit of like universe building, because you've got these two characters who arrive at this abandoned warehouse of sorts. I'm still trying to piece the story in my head. You can tell.
It was a cave, like an old sort of like underground sort of. I don't know. I sort of picked it in the cover art.
It was just, it was something like that. Like in when I was writing it, it was meant to be like an abandoned warehouse where these Oscar droids or whatever would be like, they were wasted away. They had no leader, so they went off and died. And then these two young people, who we assume are fresh off the cusp or are at university, because there's a mention of the University of Orion. And it's just a little bit of world building, because obviously we all know about the Orion War, and that's very much related to the Cybermen, and the Oscar droids obviously have nothing to do with the Cybermen, so it kind of subverts your expectations in there, unless of course you read the title. It kind of gets defeated by looking at the title and the cover art, but pretend I never said that. But it's kind of changes your expectations. And then we have the Doctor arrive in the middle of it, and it turns out that one of these characters who dies at the hands of the Oscars is meant to become famous, so they have to go back in time, and there's this whole whirlwind. It's very Moffat-esque, but when writing it I thought, hey, let's do some stuff. And it's just mad and full of ideas that, in all honesty, I could have probably developed it better, because a lot of it is sort of thrown in there, and there are bits in there where I just think, oh, maybe that would have done with a bit of development on this and that, because obviously one of them dies very quickly in it. But
Yeah, I mean, I think it works for, because I think the idea you've told me is that it's sort of like these two audios that would be in Uncharted Past, that they'd be the beginning and they'd be the I don't know,
end,
in the end. But as well as that there is an ending with the young Doctor when he encounters Lord Oscar Protestant. In what's called City of Heroes in Volume 3.
The Doctor said that these people have come back in time, but if they've been here for hundreds of years, where is everyone?
Does it matter?
Of course it does.
If there is even a small chance that I can solve this crisis, please let me take that chance. So far you've been building your forces to be ready for the future. Let me stop this crisis from even happening.
So to tell us what the interlinking elements of the Young Doctor Volume 3 and the two stories from Volume 2 and Volume 3 of Uncharted Past.
Well, the story itself is it's got a weird order because you have the sort of middle with which we begin sort of in the middle, and then we go to the beginning more or less in the Young Doctor adventures, because obviously the Young Doctor comes before, way before the Irish Doctor, and so we find out, oh, okay, interesting, and then we have the finale with the Irish Doctor again, but obviously towards it's a little bit time has passed, and so and it's interesting because obviously the Irish Doctor doesn't really remember who the Protectors are or who the Oscars are or anything like that, even though that they have kind of met them.
Yeah, I think we script edited that a little bit, but to be that it's because of the biscuits. There's like a memory altering drug within the biscuits.
Oh, I cannot remember that bit. I mean, I probably wasn't there for that bit, but I'm glad that you thought of that mind-altering drug and biscuits. It's amazing.
Yeah. I haven't had a bourbon in months after reading that script.
Dear
If anyone goes into this audio and not ever touching biscuits again, I think you have a lot of people after you, mate.
Yeah. Never touch biscuits once you've listened to this episode or any of these episodes. Maybe I'll reference the biscuit tree in another episode if I ever write for Overton Audios again. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's like a recurring line, because I wrote this not around the same time, but it was in living memory of the episode I wrote for Series 4 of Resurrection, and there's a line that says, you have to keep up with the lingo around here, and they both both doctors, the Irish Doctor and the Cravat Doctor, both say that, and both the companions for those doctors are just like, please stop. So you've got Nathan, who's just a bit like, don't ever say that again, and you got Carly in Series 4. Carly? Oh God.
Yeah, Carly.
I hope I'm right.
But
yeah.
But I think it's more unique for the Irish Doctor because he is a father, and he's sort of like being the embarrassing dad type. He's like that, and it's like, so when Nathan's like, please stop, he's more like, it's like, you embarrass me here.
You're just like, stop, please, no more. I don't like this. Please, it hurts. But I do like that little thing. And it was just a nice little reference. And I guess it kind of joins up the kind of character, because obviously even though every Doctor's different, they are still the same person. And so like you can, it's like in Series 10 when Master and Missy say the same thing. The Doctor's dead, and Tommy always hated you, and Tanardal. And so it's kind of like that, where different incarnations, but they still have the similar quirks in that vein. And yeah,
exactly. And I think the Doctor is always the same person. It's always been shown some sort of capacity that they always have this sort of similar thoughts and how they think and how they operate, especially when it comes to any sort of interaction. But I think as well, like as you said, that master scene from what was that film called? The Doctor Falls shows that even through incarnations apart, it's it's something that's reoccurring because they're the same person. When they entered, they thought, let's say they make out of Nardal. So obviously the Doctor, because he started off as a grandfather, and so he's always sort of known how to be this embarrassing elderly type around the youth.
But I enjoyed writing it. It was mad. It was weird. I wrote some, there's the drilling scene.
Oh Jesus, yeah. You love to torture Nathan, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I don't know. This is the thing. I generally had to ask. This is going out to everyone. If everyone wonder, I had to ask John to really lighten up, because I did not really like how he tortured Nathan in Volume 2. Considering Nathan was 15 years old and he was bloody waterboarded to the inch of his life. And which in some ways I'm thankful for, because Callum had a cold, so the waterboarding helped with the acting for Callum. But at the same time, just sort of like, I don't like the idea of minors being killed whilst the Doctor is present.
Yeah.
So I had to really ask you very nicely to not endanger Nathan's life to a
And I
very
didn't.
harsh and horrifying degree this audio. And you get a drill.
Well, you asked me not to harm him, so I thought, okay, we'll put him in immediate danger, and then we'll have Nathan harm someone else.
Yeah,
because he destroys the Oscar droid or whatever it is. You know, he destroys that with the drill that he's about to get murdered with.
Yeah, but still, he gets force-fed disgusting, aged-old, moldy biscuits.
I mean, the thing is, it just makes sense to me because I think it was like a reference to like the first story. So you've got like biscuits, yeah. And I was just thinking, like, wait, if this is a rundown robot who has these biscuits, what if we were to have a thing? And it actually works as well with all these hallucinogenics. Sorry. Oh my god! Imagine eating moldy biscuits with very very old hallucinogenics. I wonder what shrooms he must have been consuming.
He would have severe food poisoning.
But yeah, so he gets force-fed moldy biscuits, and then he gets nearly drilled in the skull or wherever it was, and then he gets to destroy a robot with said drill. I suppose he's just getting his own back because obviously he was at the receiving end.
Like I think as well we script edited in a part where he just sort of like, I'm getting my own back at these bloody things.
Yeah. But I thought it was just a nice bit of as mad as it was, I think it was like a nice little bit of like character development in that sense because you have the Lord Protector waterboarding Nathan in the first part of this trilogy that we see from our perspective anyway. And then we go to the far future in the third final part. And then we're just like, oh, okay. And he, we think he's about to get harmed because obviously he's force-fed moldy biscuits. He's nearly drilled, to death. And then we get to turn the tables a bit, and I thought that was nice. But then obviously it's completely insane. I was writing Storage of the Condemned at the time, so please forgive me.
That's a really good style. You do like these sort of insanity-driven stories.
I do love stories that are driven by characters who have been pushed to such extremes. Like when you think about it, for example, this is going off topic, but Oliver Hartley, which is a character that Daniel played, technically he resorted to cannibalism because what happened is that there's a scene where he has to go to the he joins the Food is Food campaign and he has to go to this place where it's like a conversion chamber. But what happens is that you immediately get killed on entry and you get turned into a thick porridge, which I think are the words that Ross Wilson says as Dr. Salem. But obviously he survives in some way, and so he can't move properly, and he knows if he steps outside he'll be killed. So he lives off the product, which is it's dark, things like that. I like writing fucked up stories. I do love it. It's fun. I'm not like getting off on it, but it's amazing. It's fun to do these horrific stories.
That's fine. I mean, we all have our own styles. I just don't think trying to drown Nathan is okay.
It's fine doing these stories. You can have cannibalism, just don't drown Nathan.
As well, like I also want to know, like, what was the process of you developing the story? How did you come up with the idea of the protectors, Lord Oscar Pross, and then the operators? Because
with the protectors and the operators, I had recently been looking into a bit of theology, really. Like I've because these characters, these protectors, they're quite, they're very ambiguous, and so I was thinking like they could have a godly presence because they know the Doctor and stuff like that, and they're very powerful. In the first episode, that they have power with the Doctor. Like what kind of beings can take the Doctor out of the TARDIS with their companion, stick them in a maze, and then waterboard Nathan in the background? So what kind of characters can do this and just at will, with a click of a button? And so, I looked into a bit of theology, like, a godly presence, But then, when it comes to the whole overarching story and the protectors and all that lot, and I don't know where they came from, and like I don't know where that came from. In all honesty, like it was sort of like I had this idea of it started as an idea of the Doctor being in a maze and then going around and finding these people who all look the same, and that was the original concept. And they were going to be genuine people, and it was going to be like it was going to have this like godly presence still, but it wasn't necessarily the protectors, and these people weren't necessarily robots at the time. And so they started as people who were just extremely friendly. And it was going to be kind of like the Eternals in a way, where they've just been there for a long time and they're just happy to see people and they want to understand them. But then it sort of became this whole thing of like, oh no, these aren't actually people. They all look the same and they're robots. They're androids built by this big organization which have a godly presence over the Doctor. And then, it sort of becomes a thing where like, okay, so this is all because of one timey-wimey thing, that happened across, many episodes. And it might not even make sense, to be fair. Like, I don't think it necessarily does, because like the coincidences that would have had to occur for all of this to happen is mind-boggling. But it started out as that, and it slowly became a little thing. And then that's when I sort of lose track of where I got inspiration from and where any of the ideas came from, because sometimes they just sort of pop up, and it's just probably down to something I watched the previous night.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we have initial ideas, but then that's influenced off one thing. As we progress, we're influenced by other things, and it sort of changes what our idea was and what our initial thoughts of something were.
Yeah, the second episode in the little trilogy, I didn't write it necessarily. I mean, I had input with the episode, but I didn't have time to do it because I was working on so many other things. So Chad has ended up having a go at it, and so my knowledge on that episode isn't actually as good as the other two. And yeah, and the third episode, that story was sort of like tying up loose ends, and I truly wanted to write a timey-wimey story because I've never really done that very well, and I thought, let's write a timey-wimey story, because that'd be fun. And well, yeah.
It was very timey-wimey especially towards the end when we went back to the events of the first.
Yeah, yeah, and
I suppose that makes it a good trilogy. Like, I think a good story, when you're ending it, always comes back to where it started originally anyway.
Yeah. I do like full circle stories, like a lot of like Limbo, for example, that has a very full circle kind of twist to it. Like, you've got episodes 1 to 3, and we end with the opening monologue in volumes 1 and 2 for the most part. So you get an idea of that everything comes full circle. And I just love the age-old story of the cycle of life. It's just such a good thing, and it's such a good story because you can just, if you end where you started, that's probably the most perfect thing, because it's not about necessarily where you're at that point, but it's about the experience that you have with it, because like we go through life beginning to end, and whether or not reincarnation's a thing, whether or not we will actually ascend to heaven or to a greater plane of existence is up for debate. And I don't necessarily believe in anything, but like I do think there is a certain cycle that goes through, because we have ups and downs, and as people we're very much that like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think as well, like, yeah, but we went, where is this podcast going? We're not talking about like actual life and death, but
I mean, that's literally what motivates me to write the cycle of life.
That's fair. I think that's good. Like, I think a good story is always like a book. You have a first and last page, and what bookends that story is, I feel like the best way to bookend a story is always calling back to the first page. And
yeah,
because it goes from a story, then it's always like, probably not the best example, like Harry Potter. We end with Harry taking his kids to the Hogwarts Express, and that's clearly something he wished he had at the very beginning. You can sort of tell, and I think it's just a nice callback. It's a very nice full circle moments. And to me as well, it also indicates that there's more to the story than you would necessarily look at upon consumption of it.
Yeah. Yeah. While I can indulge in those writerly moments, when it comes to like the inspirations for these stories, it's I think just what makes a good story is that as long as you have fun doing it, and it was just fun to do that little trilogy. I wrote 2 out of the 3 episodes for the most part. I might have a writing credit on the second one for the Young Doctor one, but I will admit I didn't. I mainly just had vocal input, not necessarily writing it. But I hope I do write more, because I do like writing these Doctor Who things, because it's a nice way of just getting stories that that you wouldn't really want to do as like a story in your own. Because imagine if it would be cool if I had like the Protectors as its own little story. Like if I made an audio series that was entirely original, based on the Protectors, and it was a 3-part series. That would be quite cool. But it's one of those things that I think would work so well for Doctor Who, and I can't be bothered to develop it. So
maybe we could develop it at some point with Overton Audios.
Maybe.
Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that would be fun. I don't really know what else there'd be left to tell. You could do you could do a big finish with it and just tell a volume of the stories that set in times that we didn't get to see, like when our Lord Protector himself, rises, from the whole plot. Yeah, whatever happens to him. We could tell the story of him, tell the story of maybe even a character, just experience it firsthand. Like it doesn't have to be a Doctor Who character. It could be a story or just a single episode from the eyes of someone looking on. Kind of like a lot of people obviously don't like this episode, but Love and Monsters, like that's kind of the concept you could do with it. Like characters who are just living through the Doctor Who world, and they don't have to be part of this organization like Torchwood, or they don't have to even be in groups like Linda. They can just be experiencing the world, looking on with eyes like, what the fuck? So you could do something like that, and I like those stories, more human stories, even if they aren't human. They could be an alien.
Yeah, I agree with you there, mate. I would like maybe there is room to expand on stories and characters and and concepts. So I think definitely something could be done later down the line if we choose to. Yeah. So I think that's basically all there's to chat about. Unless there's something else you want to chat about your story. Or is that about it?
No, all's good. I've pretty much said everything I would need to, really. It's just a fun 3-episode trilogy that you can watch, now in retrospect by the time this comes out. Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. Watch in retrospect, and then you just you can see the story unfold. It might not necessarily make sense, but I love it. It's mad, and I think stories like that should be mad.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, definitely. Except when you waterboard a 15-year-old.
Yes, waterboarding. But anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, John, for joining me. I really
thank you.
And thank you very much as well for contributing to Uncharted Past for volumes 2 and 3. Hopefully,
no worries. I got a free CD, so I'm not complaining.
I watched your collection video. Did notice you didn't show it off on your collection video.
Oh well, it's in one of my monthly vlogs, Daniel. Have you not been watching my monthly vlogs?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
All right, I'll check the house since finished recording.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, John, and take care, my friend.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
There we go. That was a very funny segment to edit because of you exposing John's flaws with his writing and the torture of companions.
Yeah, because I don't know why he does it. He likes to torture Nathan, and I'm like, Nathan's already lost his mother. He already has a very... and you make him suffer more.
Yeah.
So much compared to other companions.
Well, John's a very dark writer. I've always described his writing as matching the very early days of the monthly range, of from Big Finish. I should specify Big Finish Doctor Who monthly range. The very early days were very experimental, and John is very experimental with his writing. So I love that, and obviously as I mean, you know this, Dan. I don't know if it's public knowledge, but John's written a novel. He's a writer. He wants to he doesn't want to be a writer. He is a writer.
Yeah, he wants to
get it published. He wants to be a published author, which I think is great to aspire to. So yeah.
Well, I do admire John for that. Which I remember, like, when we made The Operators back in 2019. It was 2019, correct?
That was when we recorded it. His writing style has changed completely since. Even Our Lord Protector is not a valid example of how much he's changed.
Yeah, exactly. I remember begging him, like, no more suffering of Nathan. For your story in Volume 3, please have minimal to no damage, both mentally and physically, to him.
Yeah, well, he's writing a script for me soon for Mastermind, so we'll see. I hope a stark difference, you know.
Yeah, a bit of a style difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he comes to me with an episode where he eats moldy biscuits, gets with a drill strapped down in front of his life. These episodes are not a good time for Nathan.
No, not at all. So, is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up the podcast for this month? Because again, we've got another 30 days until we can speak to these lovely people again.
That's true. I was like to thank everyone who has listened to Uncharted Past Volume 3, who's commented and who's just enjoyed it, because a lot of work went into Volumes 3 and also 4, which is going to come out in April. By the way, just quick plug-in. The trailer for Uncharted Past Volume 4 is coming out on March 17th on my channel.
Oh yeah, that's a very valid plug there. We'll probably read the comments on that next month. Yeah. And obviously from my side, that won't be coming out until actually the day before release, because ultimately my schedule is full. I mean, it's always full. It's always usually the week before, but there's a reason why we're behind on the schedule now. So yes, and I second what you said as well. Thank you so much for not just the support on Volume 3, but the support on everything. Like I mentioned back really early on in these podcasts, I mentioned the crime drama that we were making. The trailer for that came out yesterday, and there's been a lot of support. I've got a lot of personal messages on Instagram and also through the Facebook page. And also there's YouTube comments as well, but more people just saying they're hyped. I'm glad there's a lot of hype. We've got Kate in it as the main character. We've got Meg. We've even got Megan Shirley in it. Meg herself, she's in it as well. She plays the victim, but there are flashbacks in it. We've also got John in what I consider one of his best performances. You're not in it, are you?
Well, no, this is the one thing. The only contribution I think I've done for this audio was the cover art.
Yeah, but your cover art is also fantastic. Like, how much of that is real? Obviously, the people in the photographs are real, but you know, was the police car in that shot originally? Have you added that?
I mean, that is a real police car.
But I mean, like, was it a part of that photo in that specific location?
It's just, the alley photo those are all separate elements.
But there you go. So on the scene, which will be out by the time this podcast comes out, is definitely the one thing this year that I'm the most proud of, because I struggled so much with that, and it's something that I consider like one of the most human stories I may have written.
Oh, I'm very excited to listen.
I'm looking forward to people hearing, and hopefully, and Kate's in it, the gold standard. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this month's podcast.
And we'll see you again next month. Take care, everyone.
Right, bye-bye, everyone.